Maya Rodriguez took a deep breath as she stood outside the tall brick building of Lincoln High School. The morning sun made the windows shine bright like mirrors. She looked down at her outfit and touched the rough fabric of her father's old camouflage jacket. The jacket was too big for her small frame, but it made her feel safe and close to him even though he was thousands of miles away serving his country. Students walked past her in groups talking and laughing with their friends. Maya noticed how different she looked from everyone else. The other girls wore designer jeans and colorful sweaters with matching shoes. The boys had on expensive sneakers and brand-name hoodies. Maya wore her father's combat boots that were scuffed and worn from years of use. Her jeans were faded and had small holes near the knees, but the camouflage jacket was what made her stand out the most. She pulled her backpack higher on her shoulders and walked through the front doors. The hallways were wide and clean with shiny floors that reflected the bright lights above. Trophy cases lined the walls showing off awards from sports teams and academic competitions. Everything looked perfect and expensive. Maya felt like she had stepped into a different world from the simple military-based school she used to attend. Other students began to notice her as she walked down the hall looking for her locker. She heard whispers and giggles behind her. A group of perfectly dressed girls near the water fountain stopped talking when she passed and then started whispering again. Maya pretended not to hear them, but her face felt hot with embarrassment. At her locker, she struggled with the combination lock while students continued to stare. A tall blonde girl wearing a pink sweater walked up with two friends following behind her. The blonde girl looked Maya up and down with a mean smile on her face. "Are you supposed to be in some kind of play or something?" the blonde girl said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Maya looked up from her locker. "No, I just like wearing my father's jacket." "Your father's jacket?" one of the other girls repeated and started laughing. "Why would you wear your dad's old clothes to school?" "He is serving in the military overseas," Maya said quietly. "The jacket helps me feel connected to him." The blonde girl rolled her eyes. "That is so weird. Don't you have any normal clothes?" Maya felt her chest get tight with anger and sadness, but she did not want to cry in front of these mean girls. "There is nothing wrong with my clothes." "If you say so," the blonde girl said in a sarcastic voice. "Come on, girls, let's go before we catch whatever she has." The three girls walked away laughing and pointing back at Maya. She quickly grabbed her books and shut her locker harder than she meant to. The loud bang made other students look at her again. Maya wished she could disappear into the floor. Her first class was English literature with Mrs. Patterson. Maya found a seat in the back corner, hoping no one would notice her. But as soon as she sat down, students started turning around to look at her outfit. She heard someone whisper, "Look at the army girl," and another person said, "Is she going to war after school?" Mrs. Patterson was a kind-looking older woman with gray hair and glasses. She smiled at Maya when she introduced herself to the class. "We have a new student today. Maya Rodriguez has just moved here from Fort Campbell. Please make her feel welcome." But instead of feeling welcome, Maya felt even more embarrassed as every student in the room turned to stare at her. She gave a small wave and tried to smile, but her face felt stiff and fake. During lunchtime, Maya carried her tray to the cafeteria and looked around for somewhere to sit. All the tables seemed to be full of students who already knew each other. She finally found an empty table in the corner and sat down alone. The food was much fancier than what she was used to at her old school. There were fresh salads and gourmet sandwiches instead of the simple meals served on the military base. As Maya ate her lunch, she could hear students at nearby tables talking about her. They were not trying to be quiet about it. A group of boys kept looking over at her and making comments about playing soldier and wearing costumes to school. Some girls took pictures of her with their phones when they thought she was not looking. Maya tried to focus on her food, but she had lost her appetite. She missed her old school where many students had parents in the military. There, wearing camouflage was normal and respected. Everyone understood what it meant to have family members deployed overseas. No one made fun of military children or called their clothes weird. After lunch, Maya had physical education class. In the locker room, she changed into her gym clothes while other girls continued to stare and whisper. She had brought plain shorts and a t-shirt, but even these seemed different from what the other girls wore. Their workout clothes had designer labels and matched perfectly. During gym class, they played volleyball. Maya was actually good at sports because she had always been active on the military bases. But every time she made a good play, someone would make a joke about her military training or call her sergeant in a mocking voice. The final bell rang, and Maya walked to her locker feeling exhausted and sad. She had hoped this new school would be a fresh start after her mother remarried, and they moved to this wealthy town. But instead she felt more alone than ever. As she walked out of the school building, she saw some of the mean girls from earlier standing by the flagpole. They were looking at their phones and laughing. Maya had a sick feeling in her stomach that they were laughing about her. She walked to the bus stop and waited for her ride home. Other students got into expensive cars with their parents or drove their own cars out of the parking lot. Maya felt like an outsider watching a world she would never be part of. When the bus finally came, Maya climbed on and found a seat by herself. She looked out the window at the big houses with perfect lawns as the bus drove through the neighborhood. Everything looked so different from the simple housing on military bases where she had grown up. Maya pulled out her phone and looked at a picture of her father in his military uniform. He looked strong and proud standing in front of an American flag. She missed him so much it made her chest hurt. She wished she could talk to him about her horrible first day, but she knew he was busy with important military duties. As the bus got closer to her new house, Maya made a promise to herself. She would continue wearing her father's jacket no matter what anyone said. It was her way of honoring him and showing that she was proud to be a military daughter. These rich kids might not understand, but that did not matter to her. Tomorrow would be another day and maybe things would get better. Or maybe they would get worse. But Maya decided she would face whatever came next with courage, just like her father taught her. She would not let these bullies change who she was or take away her connection to her military family. Maya woke up on Tuesday morning and looked at her father's camouflage jacket hanging on her bedroom chair. She had promised herself she would keep wearing it no matter what anyone said, but after yesterday's cruel treatment, she felt nervous about facing school again. Her stomach twisted into knots as she put on the jacket and looked at herself in the mirror. When Maya arrived at Lincoln High School, the whispers started immediately. Students pointed at her and nudged their friends to look. She heard someone say, "There goes the Army girl again," and another person laughed loudly. Maya kept her head up and walked to her locker, trying to ignore the stares and comments. At her locker, she found a sticky note that someone had left on the metal door. It said, "Do you sleep in a tent?" in messy handwriting. Maya crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash, but she felt her face getting red with anger and embarrassment. Brittany Chen was the blonde girl who had been mean to Maya yesterday. She stood near the water fountain with her group of popular friends. When Maya walked past them, Brittany called out in a loud voice, "Good morning, General Maya. Are you going to inspect the troops today?" All of Brittany's friends burst out laughing like it was the funniest joke they had ever heard. Other students in the hallway turned to see what was so funny. Maya felt dozens of eyes staring at her as she hurried to her first class, in history. Maya tried to focus on the lesson about World War II, but she could hear students behind her making quiet comments about her outfit. Someone whispered, "Maybe she thinks she is going to fight in the war," and another person said, "I bet she has Army men toys at home." The teacher, Mr. Johnson, was talking about brave soldiers who fought for freedom. Maya thought about her father, who was currently serving overseas to protect people just like these cruel classmates. It made her sad that they could not understand or respect what military families sacrificed for their country. During the break between classes, Maya went to the bathroom to wash her face with cold water. 3 girls from her English class were already there fixing their makeup and hair. When Maya walked in, they started talking louder about her. "I heard she wears combat boots to bed," said one girl while putting on lip gloss. "My mom said military kids are weird because they move around so much," said another girl brushing her hair. "Maybe she thinks she is going to boot camp instead of high school," said the third girl, and they all started giggling. Maya went into a bathroom stall and locked the door. She sat down and put her head in her hands, feeling completely alone and misunderstood. These girls had no idea what it was like to have a parent deployed in a dangerous place far from home. They had no idea how much she missed her father and worried about his safety every single day. At lunchtime, Maya decided to sit in the library instead of the cafeteria. She found a quiet corner behind some tall bookshelves and ate her sandwich while reading a book. But even in the library, she was not safe from the cruel comments. A group of boys walked past her table and one of them said, "Hey, soldier girl, where is your helmet?" loud enough for everyone to hear. The librarian, Mrs. Williams, shushed them, but they kept snickering as they walked away. Maya tried to focus on her book, but the words blurred together as tears filled her eyes. She missed her old school where students respected military families. She missed her friends who understood what it meant to be proud of a parent's service to their country. In physical education class, the mockery got even worse. When Maya changed into her gym clothes in the locker room, Brittany started a new cruel game. She stood up straight and pretended to salute Maya while saying, "Yes, ma'am, General Rodriguez, ma'am," in a fake serious voice. Other girls joined in the game saluting Maya and pretending to march around the locker room. They made exaggerated serious faces and called out military commands they had heard in movies. "Drop and give me 20, shouted one girl. "Fall in line, soldiers," yelled another. Maya felt her face burning with shame and anger, but she did not want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She changed clothes as quickly as possible and walked out to the gym with her head held high. During volleyball practice, the coach divided them into teams. Maya ended up on the opposite team from Brittany and her friends. Every time Maya served the ball or made a good play, the other team would make sarcastic comments about her military training. "Wow, the Army taught her well," Brittany said when Maya scored a KO point. "Maybe she learned that at boot camp," said another girl when Maya dove to save the ball. "I bet she practices with grenades instead of volleyballs," said a third girl, and the whole group started laughing. Maya tried to ignore them and focus on the game, but their words hurt more than they would ever know. She was proud of her military family, but these girls were turning that pride into something shameful and embarrassing. After school, Maya walked to her locker to get her books. She found another note stuck to her locker door. This one said, "Hey G.I. Jane, when are you shipping out?" with a crude drawing of a stick figure in army clothes. Maya looked around to see if anyone was watching her. Brittany and her friends stood by their lockers nearby, pretending not to notice. But Maya could see them stealing glances and whispering to each other. As Maya walked out of school, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around and saw two boys from her math class following her and pretending to march in step. They swung their arms back and forth and lifted their knees high like soldiers in a parade. "Left, right, left, right," one of them chanted while the other one laughed. "Forward march, soldier girl," called the second. Boy, Maya walked faster trying to get away from them, but they followed her all the way to the bus stop still, pretending to march and making military sounds. Other students waiting for buses turned to watch the show, and some of them started laughing too. When the bus finally arrived, Maya climbed on quickly and found a seat in the back. The two boys got on the same bus and continued their cruel game by saluting her through the window as the bus pulled away. Maya put in her earbuds and tried to listen to music, but she could not stop thinking about how mean her classmates were being. She wondered if things would ever get better, or if she would have to deal with this mockery every single day until graduation. That evening, Maya sat in her room looking at pictures of her father on her phone. In one photo, he was standing with his military unit in front of an American flag. All the soldiers looked strong and proud to serve their country. Maya wished her classmates could see her father the way she saw him, as a hero who was protecting their freedom. She thought about calling her father, but she knew he was busy with important military duties. She did not want to worry him with her problems when he had bigger things to deal with. Instead, she wrote him an email telling him about her new school, but leaving out the parts about being bullied. Maya looked at her father's jacket hanging on the chair and made another promise to herself. No matter how cruel her classmates became, she would continue wearing it with pride. She would not let their ignorance and meanness take away her connection to her military family. Tomorrow would be another difficult day, but Maya was determined to face it with courage. She was the daughter of a brave soldier, and she would not let these bullies defeat her spirit. By Wednesday morning, Maya felt exhausted before the day even began. She had barely slept the night before because she kept thinking about all the cruel things her classmates had said and done. Dark circles formed under her eyes, and her hands shook slightly as she put on her father's camouflage jacket for the third day in a row. Her mother knocked on her bedroom door and peeked inside. "Honey, are you sure you don't want to wear something different today? I bought you some nice new clothes that might help you fit in better." Maya looked at her reflection in the mirror and touched the worn fabric of her father's jacket. "No, Mom. This jacket is important to me. I am not going to change who I am just because some kids are being mean." Her mother sighed and gave her a worried look. "Okay, sweetie, but if things get too difficult, please talk to your teachers or the principal." Maya nodded, but she knew she would handle this on her own. She did not want to seem weak or unable to take care of herself. Military families were supposed to be strong and tough. When Maya arrived at school, she immediately noticed something different. Students were looking at their phones and whispering more than usual. As she walked down the hallway, she caught glimpses of screens showing pictures and videos. Her stomach dropped when she realized they were looking at content about her. Someone had posted pictures of Maya from the previous 2 days on social media. The photos showed her walking in the hallways wearing her camouflage jacket. The captions were cruel and mocking. One post said, "Check out our school's new wannabe soldier," with laughing face emojis. Another said, "Someone tell this girl the costume party is over," with more mean comments underneath. Maya felt sick to her stomach as she realized hundreds of students had probably seen these posts. The pictures had been shared and reposted with even more cruel comments added by people she had never even met. Some comments called her weird and crazy. Others made fun of military families and said terrible things about soldiers. At her locker, Maya found a group of students standing around looking at their phones and pointing at her. When she approached, they did not even try to hide what they were doing. One boy held up his phone to show her the posts. "Look, you are famous," he said with a mean grin. "Everyone is talking about the army girl who thinks she is so special." Maya grabbed her books and slammed her locker door shut. The loud noise made other students look over, but she did not care anymore. She was tired of trying to be polite and ignore their cruelty. In biology class, things got even worse. Maya sat at her usual spot in the back corner, hoping to avoid attention. But Brittany Chen had other plans. She raised her hand during the lesson about cell structures and asked the teacher a question. "Mrs. Henderson, does the school dress code say anything about wearing military costumes to class?" Brittany asked in a fake innocent voice. The entire class turned to look at Maya. Some students started giggling and whispering to each other. Maya felt her face turn bright red with embarrassment and anger. Mrs. Henderson looked confused and uncomfortable. "Well, Brittany, the dress code prohibits inappropriate clothing, but I don't see any problem with what Maya is wearing." "I was just wondering," Brittany continued with a smirk, "because some students might find it distracting or offensive to see someone playing dress up like they are in the military, when they are not." More students started laughing, and Maya felt tears building up in her eyes. She wanted to stand up and scream at Brittany that she was not playing dress up. She wanted to explain that her father was risking his life overseas while Brittany worried about her nail polish and shopping trips. But instead, Maya just sat in her chair feeling smaller and more alone than ever. Mrs. Henderson tried to get the class back on track, but Maya could not focus on the lesson. All she could think about was how much she hated this school and these terrible people. At lunchtime, Maya decided to eat in the library again. But as she walked through the hallways carrying her lunch tray, she encountered the worst display of cruelty yet. Near the cafeteria entrance, a group of about 15 students had organized what they called a military drill. The students stood in a line pretending to be soldiers. They marched back and forth in the hallway, lifting their knees high and swinging their arms. One student shouted out commands like left, face, and about face, while the others tried not to laugh as they followed the orders. When Maya appeared with her lunch tray, the fake drill sergeant pointed at her and shouted, "There is our commanding officer. Everyone salute General Maya." All 15 students turned toward Maya and gave her exaggerated salutes while trying not to burst out laughing. Other students in the hallway stopped to watch the show. Some took out their phones to record videos of the cruel performance. Maya stood frozen in the middle of the hallway holding her lunch tray. She felt like everyone in the entire school was staring at her and laughing. The fake soldiers continued their ridiculous drill while making loud comments about following Maya's orders and reporting for duty. Something inside Maya finally snapped. All the anger and hurt and frustration from the past 3 days came rushing out at once. She threw her lunch tray on the floor with a loud crash that echoed through the hallway. Food splattered everywhere and the plastic tray bounced across the tiles. "Stop it!" Maya screamed at the top of her lungs. "Just stop it, all of you. You don't know anything about me or my family. You don't know what sacrifice means or what it feels like to have someone you love risking their life for ungrateful people like you." Tears streamed down Maya's face as she continued shouting, "My father is a real soldier fighting for your freedom, while you sit here in your perfect little bubble making fun of things you don't understand. You think this is all a big joke, but military families sacrifice everything so you can live safely in your fancy houses and go to your expensive school." The hallway fell completely silent. Students stopped laughing and stared at Maya with surprised expressions. Some looked ashamed and uncomfortable. Others pulled out their phones to record Maya's emotional breakdown. Maya realized that dozens of students were watching her and probably recording everything she said. She felt embarrassed and exposed, standing there crying in front of everyone. Without another word, she turned around and ran toward the nearest exit. She burst through the doors and ran across the parking lot toward a small wooded area behind the school. Her vision was blurry from tears and her chest felt tight like she could not breathe properly. She found a large oak tree and sat down against the trunk, trying to calm down. Maya pulled out her phone and looked at a picture of her father in his military uniform. She wished more than anything that he was here to protect her from these cruel people. She wished she could go back to living on a military base where people understood and respected military families. After sitting under the tree for 20 minutes, Maya heard footsteps approaching. She looked up and saw Vice Principal Johnson walking toward her with a concerned expression on his face. "Maya, I heard about what happened in the hallway," he said in a gentle voice. "Several students reported that you seemed very upset. Are you okay?" Maya wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. "I am fine, sir. I just needed some fresh air." "Some students mentioned there was an incident involving other students making fun of your clothing," Mr. Johnson continued. "I want you to know that Lincoln High School does not tolerate bullying or harassment of any kind." Maya looked down at her father's camouflage jacket and felt a mix of pride and sadness. "They don't understand, sir. They think wearing this jacket is some kind of joke or costume. But it means everything to me." Mr. Johnson nodded with understanding. "Would you like to come to my office so we can talk about this situation and figure out how to make things better?" Maya stood up and brushed dirt off her jeans. She knew she had to face the consequences of her outburst. But she also knew she would continue wearing her father's jacket no matter what anyone said or did. As they walked back toward the school building, Maya made a decision. Tomorrow she would come to school with her head held high, wearing her camouflage jacket with even more pride than before. These bullies would not break her spirit or make her ashamed of her military family. Thursday morning arrived gray and cloudy as Maya got ready for another day at Lincoln High School. She had spent Wednesday afternoon in Vice Principal Johnson's office, talking about the bullying situation. He promised to speak with the students involved and reminded Maya that the school had a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, but Maya felt little hope that anything would really change. She had seen this pattern before at other schools where military kids were treated differently. Adults would make promises about stopping the bullying, but the cruel behavior usually just became more hidden and sneaky. Maya put on her father's camouflage jacket and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her eyes were still red and puffy from crying the day before. She splashed cold water on her face and tried to prepare herself mentally for another difficult day. When Maya arrived at school, she noticed that some students looked at her differently than before. A few seemed ashamed and avoided making eye contact with her. Others continued to stare and whisper, but they were more careful about it. The viral videos of her emotional breakdown had spread throughout the school and even to other schools in the district. At her locker, Maya found a note that someone had slipped through the vents. She unfolded the paper expecting another cruel message, but instead found something surprising. The note said, "I am sorry for how people have been treating you. My uncle was in the army and I know military families make big sacrifices. From a friend." Maya looked around the hallway trying to figure out who might have left the kind note. Most students were still avoiding her, but she noticed a quiet girl from her English class glance in her direction before quickly looking away. First period history class went better than usual. Mr. Johnson, the teacher, made a point to talk about how soldiers throughout American history had been honored for their service and sacrifice. He mentioned that military families also deserved respect and recognition for their contributions to keeping the country safe. When Mr. Johnson talked about World War II veterans, he looked directly at Maya and said, "We should never forget that freedom comes with a price that military families pay every single day." Maya felt grateful that at least one teacher understood what her family was going through. But she also wondered if Mr. Johnson was only being nice because Vice Principal Johnson had talked to the faculty about her situation. During second period biology class, Brittany Chen seemed quieter than usual. She still gave Maya mean looks, but she did not make any sarcastic comments or ask fake questions about the dress code. Maya wondered if Brittany had gotten in trouble for her behavior the day before. At lunchtime, Maya decided to try eating in the cafeteria again instead of hiding in the library. She found an empty table in the corner and sat down with her sandwich and apple. She tried to eat quickly so she could leave before anyone had a chance to bother her. But as Maya was finishing her lunch, she noticed something strange happening in the cafeteria. Students were looking at their phones and whispering to each other with excited expressions. This was different from the usual gossip and social media drama. Something bigger was happening. Maya heard fragments of conversations around her. Students were talking about helicopters and military visits and special announcements. She could not make sense of what they were saying, but everyone seemed surprised and curious about something. After lunch, Maya went to her locker to get her books for afternoon classes. The hallways were buzzing with energy as students talked animatedly about whatever news they had heard. Maya caught bits and pieces of their conversations. "I heard it on the radio this morning," one student said to his friend. "My mom texted me about it during lunch," said a girl, walking past Maya's locker. "This is so crazy, I cannot believe it is really happening," said another student. Maya wondered what could possibly have the entire school so excited and distracted. She hoped it was not some new viral video or social media trend that would make her life even more difficult. Third period math class was interrupted by a crackling sound from the intercom system. Principal Williams cleared his throat and began speaking in a serious tone that immediately got everyone's attention. "Good afternoon, students and faculty. I need everyone to stop what they are doing and listen carefully to this important announcement." The classroom fell completely silent as students looked up at the speaker mounted on the wall. Even the teacher, Mrs. Garcia, stopped writing on the whiteboard and turned to listen. "I have just received some very special news that affects our entire Lincoln High School community," Principal Williams continued. "As you all know, we pride ourselves on being a school that values respect, dignity, and honor." Maya felt her stomach tighten with nervousness. She had no idea what this announcement could be about, but something in the principal's tone made her feel uneasy. "Over the past few days, it has come to my attention that we have not been living up to these values when it comes to how we treat certain members of our school family," Principal Williams said. Maya noticed that several students in her math class turned to look at her. Her face started to feel warm as she realized this announcement might somehow be related to her situation. I'm deeply disappointed to learn that some students have been engaging in bullying and harassment directed at a fellow student whose family serves our country in the United States military," the principal continued. Now everyone in the classroom was staring directly at Maya. She wanted to disappear into her chair or run out of the room, but she forced herself to sit still and listen. "This behavior is completely unacceptable and goes against everything Lincoln High School stands for. Military families make tremendous sacrifices to protect our freedom, and they deserve our respect and gratitude, not our mockery." Maya could hear similar announcements echoing from other classrooms down the hallway. The entire school was hearing this message about military families and respect. She felt embarrassed that her personal situation had become such a big public issue. "But today I have some very exciting news that I believe will help our school community gain a better understanding and appreciation for military service," Principal Williams said, and his voice took on a more positive tone. "I have just been contacted by officials from Fort Campbell who have requested to visit our school for a very special presentation. This visit has been arranged specifically to honor one of our students whose father is currently deployed overseas serving our country." Maya's eyes grew wide with shock and disbelief. Fort Campbell was where her father was stationed before his deployment. How could they possibly know about her situation at this school? All students and faculty are required to report immediately to the gymnasium for a special assembly. This is not optional. Please gather your belongings and proceed to the gym in an orderly fashion. The intercom crackled off and the classroom erupted in excited chatter. Students grabbed their backpacks and started heading toward the door while talking animatedly about what this mysterious visit could involve. Maya sat frozen at her desk, trying to process what she had just heard. Her mind raced with questions and possibilities. How did Fort Campbell officials know about the bullying at her school? What kind of special presentation were they planning? And most importantly, why had they specifically mentioned honoring a student whose father was deployed? Mrs. Garcia approached Maya's desk with a kind smile. "Well, Maya, it sounds like you are going to be the center of attention today. Are you ready for whatever surprise they have planned?" Maya stood up on shaky legs and gathered her books. She had no idea what was about to happen, but she had a feeling that everything was about to change at Lincoln High School. As Maya walked toward the gymnasium, with hundreds of other curious students, she felt a mixture of excitement, fear, and hope building in her chest. Whatever was about to happen, she knew it would be connected to her father and his military service. For the first time in days, Maya allowed herself to feel a tiny spark of pride instead of shame as she thought about her father's camouflage jacket. Maybe these students were finally going to understand what it really meant to be part of a military family. The gymnasium at Lincoln High School had never been so packed with curious and excited students. Maya walked into the large space feeling overwhelmed by the noise and energy around her. Hundreds of teenagers filled the bleachers talking loudly and speculating about what kind of military presentation they were about to see. Maya found a spot in the middle section of the bleachers and sat down quietly. Students around her were still whispering and pointing in her direction, but their expressions seemed more curious than cruel now. Word had spread quickly that she was the student with the deployed father who would be honored during this special visit. Brittany Chen sat several rows below Maya with her usual group of popular friends. Maya noticed that Brittany kept glancing back at her with a confused and slightly worried expression. For the first time since Maya had started at Lincoln High School, Brittany did not look confident and in control. Principal Williams walked to the center of the gymnasium floor carrying a wireless microphone. The noise level gradually decreased as students realized the presentation was about to begin. Teachers positioned themselves around the edges of the gym to help maintain order. Students and faculty, thank you for gathering here today for this very special assembly, Principal Williams said in a voice that carried clearly throughout the large space. Maya felt her heart beating faster as she waited to find out what exactly was planned. She still could not understand how military officials from Fort Campbell had learned about her situation or why they wanted to visit her school. Before our special guests arrive, I want to take a moment to talk about respect and understanding, the principal continued. Over the past few days, some very disappointing behavior has occurred at our school. Students have been making fun of and bullying a classmate whose family serves our country. The gymnasium fell completely silent as Principal Williams spoke about military sacrifice and the importance of supporting service families. Maya felt hundreds of eyes on her, but for once the attention did not feel hostile or mocking. Military families move frequently and adapt to new communities, while dealing with the stress of having loved ones deployed in dangerous situations, Principal Williams explained. The least we can do is welcome these families with kindness and respect instead of ignorance and cruelty. Maya noticed that many students looked ashamed as they listened to the principal's words. Some of the same people who had laughed at her camouflage jacket just yesterday now seemed to understand that their behavior had been wrong. Today we have been given a very special opportunity to learn about military service and to honor one of our own students whose father is currently deployed overseas, the principal said. As Principal Williams continued speaking, Maya began to hear a faint sound coming from outside the gymnasium. At first it was so quiet that she thought she might be imagining it. But gradually the sound grew louder and more distinct. It sounded like a low rumbling or humming noise that seemed to be getting closer to the school. Maya tilted her head and listened more carefully, trying to identify what could be making such an unusual sound. Other students began to notice the noise too. They looked around at each other with puzzled expressions and started whispering about what they were hearing. The sound continued to grow louder until it was impossible to ignore. "Do you hear that?" asked a boy, sitting near Maya. "What is that noise?" said a girl in front of him. "It sounds like it is coming from outside," said another student. Principal Williams paused in his speech as the rumbling sound became loud, enough to compete with his voice over the microphone. He looked toward the gymnasium doors with a knowing smile that suggested he was expecting this interruption. The noise grew louder and more intense with each passing second. It was unlike anything most of these suburban students had ever heard before. The sound was deep and powerful and seemed to vibrate through the walls and floor of the building. Maya felt a jolt of recognition as the sound became clearer and more familiar. She had heard this exact noise many times before during her years living on military bases with her family. Her eyes widened with excitement and disbelief as she realized what was approaching the school. "Is that a helicopter?" asked a student somewhere behind Maya. "It sounds huge," said another voice. "Why?" Would a helicopter be coming to our school? Wondered a third student. The rumbling sound continued to increase in volume until it seemed to fill the entire gymnasium. Students began looking up at the ceiling as if they expected to see something flying overhead. The noise was so loud now that Principal Williams had to raise his voice to be heard. Maya's heart raced with anticipation as she listened to the familiar sound of military aircraft. She thought about all the times she had watched helicopters take off and land at the bases where her family had lived. She remembered the pride she felt seeing the skilled pilots and crew members who operated these incredible machines. The sound reached a thunderous level that made the windows of the gymnasium rattle slightly. Students began to look nervous and excited at the same time. Many of them pulled out their phones to record whatever was about to happen. "Students, please remain calm and stay in your seats," Principal Williams announced over the microphone. "What you are hearing is the arrival of our very special guests from Fort Campbell." Maya could barely contain her excitement as she realized that a real military helicopter was actually landing at her school. She thought about her father who worked with these aircraft and their crews every day. She wondered if he somehow knew what was happening at her school right now. The rumbling sound began to change as the aircraft seemed to be slowing down and getting closer to the ground. Maya could tell from the sound that the helicopter was large and powerful. This was not some small civilian aircraft, but a serious military machine. Students throughout the gymnasium were now standing up and trying to look out the high windows to catch a high glimpse of whatever was landing outside. Teachers were having difficulty keeping everyone in their seats as excitement and curiosity took over. "This is so cool," exclaimed a boy near Maya. "I cannot believe this is really happening," said a girl sitting behind her. "Wait until I post this on social media," said another student already holding up his phone to record. Maya remained seated, but her whole body was trembling with emotion. She touched her father's camouflage jacket and felt a surge of pride and connection to the military community that was about to make such a dramatic entrance at Lincoln High School. The thunderous noise began to decrease slightly as the aircraft apparently touched down somewhere on the school grounds. But the sound of the engines and rotors continued to fill the air with their powerful presence. Principal Williams walked closer to the bleachers and spoke into his microphone with obvious excitement in his voice. "Students and faculty, we are about to witness something truly extraordinary. Our guests have arrived and they have a very special message for all of us about courage, sacrifice, and the true meaning of military service." Maya felt tears of joy building in her eyes as she realized that everything was about to change at Lincoln High School. The same students who had mocked her military family were about to come face to face with the reality and power of the armed forces that protected their freedom every single day. The rumbling sound outside continued as Maya waited to see what would happen next. She knew that her father and his fellow service members were about to teach these privileged students a lesson they would never forget about respect and military pride. Principal Williams set down his microphone and walked toward the gymnasium doors with a smile that told everyone he knew exactly what was happening outside. The thunderous rumbling continued to shake the Q building as hundreds of students sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they were experiencing. "Students and faculty, please follow me outside to the football field in an orderly fashion," Principal Williams announced as he gestured toward the exits. "Stay with your teachers and move calmly. What you are about to see will be something you remember for the rest of your lives." Maya stood up with the rest of her class, but her legs felt weak and shaky from excitement and disbelief. She could not believe that a real military helicopter had actually come to Lincoln High School. As she walked down the bleacher steps, she noticed that other students were looking at her with new expressions of curiosity and respect. The doors to the gymnasium opened and everyone began filing outside toward the football field. The moment Maya stepped into the fresh air, the sound hit her like a wall of noise. The helicopter was much louder outside and she could feel the vibrations in her chest and bones. Students poured onto the football field from multiple exits around the school building. Teachers worked to organize everyone into groups while trying to contain their own excitement about what was happening. Maya had never seen her teachers look so amazed and surprised. As Maya walked onto the grass of the football field, she looked up at the sky and saw something that took her breath away. Circling above the school was the most magnificent aircraft she had ever seen in person. It was an Apache attack helicopter painted in military camouflage colors with official army markings on its sides. The helicopter looked like something from an action movie, as it flew in a perfect circle above the football field. Its rotors created a rhythmic chopping sound that echoed across the entire school campus. Maya could see the pilot and gunner sitting in their positions inside the cockpit wearing flight helmets and military gear. "Oh my God, that thing is huge," shouted a student over the noise. "Look at all those weapons," called another student, pointing at the helicopter's equipment. "This is the coolest thing I have ever seen," yelled a third student while taking pictures with her phone. Maya stood transfixed watching the powerful aircraft demonstrate its capabilities above her school. She thought about her father, who worked with helicopters like this every day, and felt an overwhelming surge of pride in his military service. The Apache helicopter began to descend slowly toward the center of the football field. Students instinctively moved backward as the massive machine approached the ground. The noise became almost unbearable as the rotors churned the air and created powerful wind currents. Maya's hair whipped around her face, and her father's camouflage jacket flapped in the artificial windstorm created by the helicopter's rotors. Dust and small pieces of grass flew through the air as the aircraft settled toward the ground with incredible precision. The landing was absolutely perfect. The skilled pilot brought the Apache down exactly in the middle of the football field between the 40-yard lines. The landing gear touched the grass gently despite the helicopter's enormous size and weight. For several minutes, the engines continued running while the rotors gradually slowed their spinning. Students stood in complete silence watching this incredible display of military technology and skill. Even Brittany Chen and her popular friends looked amazed and speechless. Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she watched the helicopter's rotors come to a complete stop. This was the most beautiful and powerful thing she had ever seen. She thought about her father serving overseas and felt connected to him through this magnificent aircraft and its crew. 2. Figures emerged from the helicopter wearing full military dress, uniforms with numerous ribbons and badges on their chests. They walked with confidence and authority across the football field toward the crowd of students and teachers. The first soldier was a tall man with graying hair and a serious expression. His uniform indicated that he held a very high rank with many years of military experience. The second soldier was a woman who looked younger but equally professional and decorated. As the two soldiers approached, Principal Williams walked forward to meet them. Maya could see them shaking hands and speaking briefly before the principal turned to address the crowd of students. "Students and faculty, I want you to meet Colonel James Mitchell and Major Sarah Thompson from Fort Campbell," Principal Williams announced through a portable microphone. "They have traveled here today with a very special message for our school community." Colonel Mitchell stepped forward and took the microphone from the principal. His voice was strong and clear as he spoke to the hundreds of students gathered on the football field. "Good afternoon, Lincoln High School. What you see behind me is an Apache attack helicopter, worth $35 million and flown by some of the most skilled pilots in the United States military." Students murmured with amazement at the helicopter's incredible value. Many of them had never seen anything so expensive and sophisticated in their lives. This aircraft and others like it are used every day to protect American citizens and defend our freedom around the world. Colonel Mitchell continued, "The men and women who operate these machines make tremendous sacrifices to serve their country." Maya noticed that the entire crowd was listening with complete attention and respect. No one was talking or joking or looking at their phones. Everyone seemed to understand that they were witnessing something truly important and meaningful. "But we are not here today just to show off our equipment," Colonel Mitchell said, as he looked directly at Maya in the crowd. "We are here because of one very special student whose family exemplifies the best qualities of military service and sacrifice." Maya felt her heart pounding as hundreds of eyes turned toward her. But for the first time since starting at Lincoln High School, the attention did not feel hostile or mocking. Instead, she sensed curiosity and growing respect from her classmates. Major Thompson stepped forward and also spoke into the microphone. "Military families face unique challenges that most civilian families never experience. They move frequently, adapt to new communities, and deal with long deployments that separate them from loved ones." Maya thought about all the times her family had moved to new bases and how difficult it always was to start over in unfamiliar places. She thought about how much she missed her father and worried about his safety every single day. Today we want to honor one particular student who has shown tremendous courage and pride in her military family. despite facing ridicule and harassment from classmates who did not understand the significance of her actions. Major Thompson continued. The football field fell completely silent as students began to realize that this incredible display was connected to the bullying that had been happening at their school. Many of them looked ashamed as they understood how wrong their behavior had been. Colonel Mitchell gestured toward Maya and asked her to come forward. On shaking legs, Maya walked across the football field toward the two decorated soldiers and the magnificent Apache helicopter that had landed at her school to honor her family's service. Maya walked across the football field on trembling legs as hundreds of her classmates watched in complete silence. Every step felt like it took forever as she approached the two decorated military officers standing next to the magnificent Apache helicopter. She could feel the eyes of every student, teacher, and staff member at Lincoln High School focused on her. Colonel Mitchell smiled warmly as Maya reached the center of the football field. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and spoke into the microphone so everyone could hear his words clearly. "This young lady is Maya Rodriguez," Colonel Mitchell announced to the crowd. "Her father is Staff Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez, who is currently serving our country with the 101st Airborne Division in Afghanistan." Maya felt her chest swell with pride as she heard her father's name and rank announced to her entire school. For the first time in weeks, she felt truly proud instead of embarrassed about her military family. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez has been deployed overseas for 8 months protecting American citizens and fighting for the freedom that allows all of you to attend this excellent school and live safely in your community, Colonel Mitchell continued. Maya looked out at the sea of faces staring back at her. Many students looked amazed and impressed to learn about her father's important military service. Some looked ashamed as they realized how cruelly they had treated the daughter of a real American hero. Brittany Chen stood in the crowd with her mouth hanging open in shock and disbelief. Her face was pale and she looked smaller somehow than she had when she was bullying Maya in the hallways. Several of her popular friends were staring at the ground looking embarrassed and guilty. Major Thompson stepped forward and pulled out a folded American flag from her uniform jacket. The flag was pristine and beautiful with its bright red, white, and blue colors standing out against her dark military uniform. "Maya, your father specifically requested that we bring you this flag," Major Thompson said as she unfolded it carefully. "This flag flew over our military base in Afghanistan for 30 days. It has been blessed by military chaplains and signed by your father's entire unit." Maya reached out with shaking hands to accept the precious flag. As her fingers touched the fabric, she felt an overwhelming connection to her father and all the soldiers serving with him overseas. Tears streamed down her face as she held the flag close to her chest. "Your father also wanted us to share a special message with you and your classmates," Colonel Mitchell said as he pulled out a tablet computer from his pocket. The tablet screen came to life, showing a video connection to a military base somewhere far away. Maya gasped with joy and surprise as her father's familiar face appeared on the screen. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was wearing his military uniform and sitting in what looked like a communications tent. "Hello, my beautiful daughter," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez said with a huge smile on his face. "I am so proud of you for wearing my old jacket every day to honor our military family." Maya started crying harder as she heard her father's voice for the first time in weeks. She had missed him more than words could express, and seeing his face made her feel like he was right there with her. "I heard about what some students at your school have been saying and doing," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez continued with a more serious expression. "They do not understand what it means to serve your country or what military families sacrifice every single day." The entire football field remained completely silent as Maya's father spoke to them through the video connection. Students who had laughed at Maya's camouflage jacket now listened with respect and attention to the real soldier who owned that jacket. "But I want those students to know that I do not hold any anger toward them," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez said, looking directly into the camera. "They are young and they have never experienced what military life is really like. Today I hope they have learned something important about respect and sacrifice." Maya wiped tears from her eyes as she listened to her father's wise and forgiving words. Even after everything she had been through, he was still teaching her to respond with kindness instead of hatred. "Maya, I want you to continue wearing my jacket with pride," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez said with love in his voice. "You represent all military children who support their families while dealing with deployment and separation. You are my hero." The video connection ended and Maya clutched the flag tighter as she thought about her father's beautiful words. She looked out at her classmates and saw that many of them were crying too after hearing from a real soldier serving overseas. Colonel Mitchell took the microphone back and addressed the crowd of students one final time. Maya Rodriguez has shown incredible courage and character during her first weeks at this school. While some of you chose to mock and bully her, she chose to honor her family with dignity and pride. Maya noticed that several students in the crowd were nodding in agreement and looking at her with new respect and admiration. The same people who had laughed at her just days ago now seemed to understand what she had been going through. Military children face challenges that most of you cannot imagine, Colonel Mitchell continued. They move frequently, leave friends behind, and worry constantly about parents deployed in dangerous places. The least you can do is treat them with kindness and respect. Brittany Chen suddenly stepped forward from the crowd and walked toward Maya with tears in her eyes. The entire school watched as the girl who had been Maya's worst tormentor approached her in front of everyone. "Maya, I am so sorry for how I treated you," Brittany said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I did not understand what your jacket meant or what your family was going through. I was cruel and ignorant, and I am deeply ashamed of my behavior." Maya looked at Brittany with surprise and saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "I forgive you, Brittany," Maya said simply. "My father taught me that forgiveness makes us stronger." Other students began walking forward to apologize to Maya and thank her father for his service. Soon Maya was surrounded by classmates who wanted to shake her hand, learn about military life, and express their respect for her family. Principal Williams took the microphone and made one final announcement. "From this day forward, Lincoln High School will have zero tolerance for any disrespect toward military families or any other form of bullying. We will honor and support all students regardless of their background." As the assembly concluded and students began walking back toward the school building, Maya noticed that everything felt different. Students smiled at her and said hello as they passed. Several asked if they could sit with her at lunch and learn more about military life. The Apache helicopter powered up its engines and gradually lifted off from the football field. Maya waved goodbye to Colonel Mitchell and Major Thompson as they departed in the magnificent aircraft that had changed everything at her school. Maya walked back into Lincoln High School wearing her father's camouflage jacket with more pride than ever before. She was no longer the weird military girl who dressed funny. She was Maya Rodriguez, daughter of a hero and a symbol of strength, courage, and military pride. From that day forward, Maya never ate lunch alone again. Students competed to sit with her and hear stories about life on military bases. Teachers used her experiences to teach lessons about respect, sacrifice, and American values. Maya kept her father's flag in her locker and touched it every morning before classes began. It reminded her that she was part of something bigger than high school drama and teenage cruelty. She was part of a military family that served their country with honor and deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. The camouflage jacket that had once made her a target now made her a symbol of pride and courage at Lincoln High School, and Maya wore it every single day until her father returned home safely from his deployment overseas.